All right, we'll start out. Mr. Johnson, you going to lead us in prayer? I like to surprise him every now and then with this, but I guarantee you he's ready.
You know, I've always told Jerry, if other people want to be involved, asking God's blessing on service to me is a blessing. That's a privilege. Let's ask the Lord to bless. Jesus, we thank you for America. And Lord, how our heritage has fought for you. They came to America seeking freedom that they might reach others for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you bless that. And Lord, shame belongs upon our face, for in our generation we've turned from you. We've removed you from the schools. The most precious resource we have is our children. And we've denied our children access to you, the holy God. For that, shame belongs upon our face. Then we've furthered that turn where we even allow the most precious resource we have, children, to become an endangered species. The most dangerous place for a child to live today in America is the womb of his mother. Forgive us for that, Jesus. And we've even turned further from you, and we've allowed the institution of marriage that you've given us to be degraded to a form of animalism. And Lord, it's no wonder that our country's in such shape as it is. But we, the people, would have to even consider the fact that our own government would be turning on us. But Lord, it's all because we've turned against you. But as this group gathers tonight, I pray that you bless us with your wisdom, that we can see and know the results of your working. And Lord, God, help us to learn that you are the source. You're the source for all the wisdom we can have. Bless us with this wisdom as we seek to learn more of you. And Jesus, that maybe we could do our part to cause our country to turn back to you, that you could once again bless us with the freedom that we so undeservedly need. We ask you, Jesus, for your blessing. We ask for the time here to be used to learn about things that we could do to live for you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I believe you've done that before. At this time, Mr. Cass Rice is going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we're going to be blessed with a little bit of patriotic music from Miss Doris Finch. I met this young lady at the last first sale I was at, and I seen her come in tonight, and I went, I know her.
Sounds like he likes what he meant anyway, so that's good. As I was walking that heaven highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw all around me a voiceless sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the
That was just fine. My wife had to go home sick. I got her sick, so now I'm in trouble. I was planting an apple tree today. She's sick enough I started to keep on digging, you know what I mean? I lightened up. I thought that might be pushing it a little too much, you know what I mean? She'd look out there and see a big old trench. You know, I plowed up half the field the other day and I caught fire for that, so I thought about her lightening up on her a little bit. She is really, really sick. It made me a little sick, but it could really have a problem with her. So her announcements are the fact that we have t-shirts, and we do run this Dog and Pony Show with donations, and you guys have blessed us every time. We don't have money, but we don't need money, because every time we need a nickel or a dime, it comes. So if that stops, then I'm going to have to really think about what we're doing, how we're doing it, because we might have lost our way, and we will try to retrieve it. And anytime you have any suggestions or complaints, I'm the guy to field them both. So let me have it, and we'll try to fix it or whatever, or I'll tell you that you're absolutely wrong. I mean, we could not have done that. There's no way. But so I need to talk to you a little bit about some legislation. We have a supermajority at the Capitol this year as far as the Republicans are concerned, but they don't seem to act like it. Last time I told you that May Beavers got removed from judiciary because she was not a team player. We got to remember again who the team is. The team's Lamar, Bob, Mr. Haslam, Ron Ramsey, Beth Harwell. That's the team. So thank God she's not one of the team. And the new judiciary head last Tuesday evening showed us what the team's all about. May Beavers has a gun bill in. 2 years ago, they passed the Freedom Firearms Act of Tennessee, which basically said a gun made in Tennessee, stayed in Tennessee, didn't fall under the regulations of the federal government. She amended that thing this year to say that any gun owned in Tennessee, ammunition and accessories, do not fall under the restrictions of the federal government, as we all know what's coming down the pike or attempting to come down the pike. There was some other bills around the country that's dealing with that same situation. I'll tell you right now, some of them have been watered down a little bit, or more than I'd like. In Judiciary Tuesday, the new head of Judiciary, Mr. Ramsey's shining star, Mr. Brian Kelsey, basically railed against the bill and basically said that the supremacy clause of the Constitution overrides the 10th Amendment to the Bill of Rights. So at that point, I don't know why he didn't get up and tell everybody they was fired and just go home and let Mr. Obama make the rest of the laws for this great state, because that's basically what he said. Any law they make, we eat it, like it or not. I ate a lot of broccoli I didn't like. Some of this kind of crap I'm not going to be eating. So they forced a vote to get an Attorney General's opinion on this bill. Attorney General's a Democrat, appointed by the Democratic Supreme Court. So the ruling came out, and the first word is no. Supremacy clause overrides all of this bill specifically. And he cited a ton of case law. Okay? Well, case law is not what we're dealing with. Just because we've had a problem before doesn't mean we need to keep on having a problem, yes.
Does he claim that the supremacy clause overrides these prohibitions on using state Tennessee resources to enforce federal law?
No, he's ruling that trying to implement the law, period, would violate.
But there are two parts of it. There's one that nullifies or tries to nullify federal law.
Right.
And then there's another that prohibits agents of the state of Tennessee from using their resources to enforce it. And those are very different provisions.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'll definitely will find out if he ruled against all parts of the bill.
The first part, nullifying the federal law, is ridiculous. But the second part makes perfect sense for everybody in this state.
Mr. Johnson's going to come up here in a few minutes and read a little bit of stuff about nullification and where it's been used within the past presidencies. And then Wednesday at 11 o'clock, the 10th Amendment Center is going to come talk about nullification to that committee. And I think they're going to try to convince these guys it's not nullification in any way, shape, or form. It can be done, has been done, and can be done again if the law is unconstitutional. Now, supremacy clause absolutely would apply to a constitutional law.
That's right.
But the Second Amendment says my gun rights shall not be infringed upon. So any restrictions on my gun rights whatsoever is unconstitutional and should be annulled, period. Now, if it would be a federal law dealing with how many rabbits I can have in a cage, and they haven't went that far yet, but I'm not sure it ain't coming down the pike, then that might be the case because, well, no, that wouldn't be constitutional either. 90% of these probably aren't constitutional if we really get back to where we need to be. So he's wrong all the way around. Now, the money part, I don't even know if he ruled, does anybody know if he mentioned that in the, Dave, do you know if he mentioned that in the deal? He struck down the whole bill the way I understood it. I'll check, right? Wednesday at 11 o'clock, this thing's coming back up. And they'll read his opinion, and you have to even understand the Supreme Court at the top of everything they write. This is the opinion of this court. So they don't make laws. They give opinions on laws. So the 10th Amendment Center will be there defending this bill, or the pretext of this bill within the rights of the Second Amendment. And they're going to vote on this thing. Now, I don't know exactly how this thing's going to, I'm thinking of possibly a 5-4 in favor, or a 4-4 tie and Ramsey breaking it with the Ford out of Memphis abstaining. I think that's how this is going to go. I can't see us losing the 4 I know we got.
The biggest source of cases for impeachment have been drawers of the courts, and I'm wondering if, does that include attorneys general?
Not this one. That we need to be electing our attorney general, and I don't know how. We need to be electing our.
We need to remove it.
Well, they're trying to defang him a little bit, but we need to be voting on that situation. Most states do. Most states do elect them. I mean, that's been stopped many, many times. Mr. Sears went after the attorney generals because he knew that's the way you could have somebody in Philadelphia vote 6 times and get away with it. If that state's attorney general won't enforce their voting laws, then you have corrupt elections. So he understood exactly what he was doing, getting ready for this round of elections, this past round of elections. So, be that the case, we're still under attack by the establishment Republican Party in the Capitol. This boy is carrying water for the governor, period. Yes. John Stevens is a trial lawyer. Absolutely voted against it. He will not even talk about it. He's a lawyer. Unconstitutional. Supremacy clause. Another one I'm watching, well, Mr. Johnson's going to talk to us about a letter we're going to put out here and try to get everybody to sign what he's put on. You want to go ahead and do that right now?
When Jerry was telling me what was going on there, we talked for a little while, and I went over some ideas, and we put together this letter. It's going to go to Brian Kelsey. Brian Kelsey is the chairman of the Judicial Committee, and really it was his choice to push it this way. May Beavers was kicked out of the Judicial Committee, and she was the chairman, and she was the proponent of this bill. But we put this letter together. Nullification, you got to understand, this is the state's last wall of defense against an overreaching government. Nullification is when the state legislature say, no, that ain't going to fly. Now, we the people can't nullify, but we can tell our legislators in Nashville, wake up and let's stop this. Because they can. They can. And it's been, it started, one of the first times nullification was used was by 2 people, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. Thomas Jefferson was the one who penned the Declaration, and James Madison was the main idea of the author behind the Constitution. We're dealing right into our founders here. In 1797, there was a law made by the President, John Adams, called the Alien and Sedition Act. And Thomas Jefferson wrote a brief, wrote a document for the state of Kentucky to nullify the Alien and Sedition Act. James Madison wrote a document for the state of Virginia to nullify the Alien Sedition Act. And this is where it started, and it's been used several times, but let me just read this paragraph, because this meeting is not about this, it's about this fellow here. Senator Kelsey, your question concerning the Supremacy Clause and the North Carolina tariff nullification in the Judicial Committee meeting on February 19th shows a lack of understanding on the last wall of defense for protecting the citizens of Tennessee. Nullification was first used by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison for protecting the people of Kentucky and Virginia from the Alien Sedition Act of 1797. Southern states used nullification again against unfair tariffs, and northern states used the process to protect industry from unfair import duties. One of the most noble uses of nullification was the Wisconsin legislature protecting its citizens from the Fugitive Slave Law of 1859. Nullification is used today in Washington, Colorado, and California legislatures to allow their citizens to use marijuana legally. Tennessee used nullification with the Tennessee Firearms Freedom Act. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has no ruling that guns made in Tennessee and used in Tennessee are not under their regulation, but you voted to remove Tennessee guns from under their jurisdiction, thereby nullifying the federal laws. SB 0250 merely moves the wall of protection further out to cover all Tennessee guns. And, you know, this letter can be signed by anybody. Jerry, would you want me to start passing it down this way? That way everybody wouldn't be bunching up there signing at the end.
The notification was South Carolina, not North Carolina.
But North,
You said north, you may have meant south.
Well,
It was south.
the statement he made was North Carolina.
Okay, but it's.
Right, and that was in quotes. See, that was in quotes. I'm quoting what he said, in quotes. You know, your questions concerning the, quote, supremacy clause and the, quote, North Carolina tariff nullification. I'm merely quoting what he said at the meeting. But you're right, it was South Carolina. I mean, he was incorrect all the way down
Yeah,
through
he's
there.
just dumber than we thought. Okay.
Right. These statements are in quotes. That's what he said at the meeting. All right, that's what I'm dealing with. But it shows us he doesn't understand this issue. So at any rate, do you want me to start it through and then people can sign it as it goes?
Yeah, he'll pass this. If you guys want to sign it, sign
And if you don't want to sign it, that's fine. But if you'd like to sign it, we'll just start it down the row. And if you're at the end of the row, pass the row behind you. If you're at the middle of the row, when it comes, just go straight across to the other side. And that way, when it's finished, put it on the back table, and we'll be good to go there.
I'll be down Wednesday for that hearing, and I'll drop that by his office before the hearing, and I'll ask his people to let the Shining Star take a look at this thing. You guys did well. I run an alert out on this thing, and they got a lot of calls. 10th Amendment Center put it out. I think I had it out first because I had to stop and talk to her, and I knew it was coming up before it made the calendar. But the Bobby Petre brought it out. We really appreciate you guys making these calls when this stuff comes out. We're going to try not to burden you with too much of it, but when we do roll one out, please, if you can, make the calls. It really does matter. And if anybody wants to go down and run around the halls for a day, you can go with me anytime you want. I'll be going Wednesday. I'll be going a day a week at least through April. So anybody wants to experience that mess, let me know. We're going down there. I got a full schedule for Wednesday. I'm actually got a schedule with a couple Democrats over a deal, but we'll be seeing. There is some more we should be talking about, but we really don't have time. And if you're not on our info list, please sign up on our info list if you want to get our notices on legislative alerts and that kind of stuff, because it is, sometimes it makes you wonder if it's really worth it. Are they really listening? Or are they just doing what they need, what they think they need to do to keep us to the left as far as they think we need to be? But it would be a shame if they squander this supermajority this round and not get some of this stuff done that they know is the right thing to do. And May wrote that bill very, very well. It actually has a paragraph in it that says, if the Attorney General refuses to defend this bill, defend this law, or inadequately defends it, the citizens of this great state have a right to seek private counsel. And it has a severability clause. If you lose any one part of it, the rest of it stands. So we're not going to lose the whole bill. The girl does good work. She was just removed from judiciary because she was not a team player. Now you see what the team is like that replaced her. It's a water boy for the governor is what it is. So I've railed enough. My blood pressure is rocking. So at this time, we'll turn our meeting over to Mr. Jim Smith from Back to the Land. He's going to help us when the federal government gets done with us. We're going to need him. Well, some of y'all will. I'm in pretty good shape. I kind of live it every day. You know what I mean? But let us have it, brother.
As Mr. Payne was Homestead. I'm Jim Smith. I have a company over in Houston County called the Back to the Land Store. And I started that enterprise in 1993, way before there was so much alarm or disgust about what the folks in Washington are doing. We are agrarians. We have horses and mules. We have milk cows and have had for many years. And we have a farm. About 85% of all the food we eat is produced there on our place. And so I am desperately concerned about what the folks in Washington are doing, about the debt, about the creation of fiat money, and all of the other things that they do in Washington is very troubling to me. To the extent that I believe that you and I are headed directly to a financial collapse, the likes of which we have never seen. And so a lot of the things about the Back to the Land Store are kind of like your grandparents had and used, and it enabled them to be very independent, even prosperous. Now, before we get started with, I'd like to introduce my new associate here, Jesse Bolton. Stand up and tip your hat, Jesse. Jesse Bolton is absolutely, background-wise, one of the most wrong-headed decisions I think I've ever made. I hired him from an 800-acre USDA farm in Albany, Georgia. He drove a tractor that had 225 horses. He planted 16 rows at a time, and he pulled a harrow that was 24 feet wide. Agribusiness guy from here to yonder. But the important thing is, we are homestead agriculture people. All this stuff here is homestead agriculture. We talk about quarter-acre gardens, half-acre gardens, 3-acre corn patches, 6-acre corn patches. So what is this guy doing here? Well, Jesse, on his own accord, made the decision that, hey, we've got to get away from these petrochemicals, and we've got to get away from these genetically modified plants.
Amen.
He's going to talk to us a little bit about a chemical-resistant plant that he encountered in his 200-acre peanut patch, or his cotton field, or whatever. Jesse's a New Testament guy. He loves the land, he loves the animals, and he and I, as a matter of fact, had a divine appointment if two men ever did. I'm an old wore-out man. He's a young and vigorous guy. So Jesse's going to be my boss one of these days soon. I'm very pleased to have you here, Jesse, as my right-hand man. You know, we sell stuff, and when I talk to a group of folks like y'all, I just wonder what my mama would say, me having been invited to talk to you, and I sell stuff. You know, if you don't buy anything and talk to me tonight, you and I are still going to be good friends. If you work your garden with a big tractor, you can come into our tent. If you work it with a rear-time rotary tiller, or a shovel and a hoe, that's perfectly fine. We are all very different. We all go about this business of gardening and living off the land in a different way. Some of us perhaps don't even garden at all, but it might very well be important to revisit that and to prepare to do that, because we might be headed toward a place where you do not have access to the Walmart grocery store or to a Publix grocery store. There might come a time that the distribution system melts in front of our very eyes. I'm absolutely certain of this. There are millions of Americans who have somehow or another become addicted to free government benefits. They do not work. They have lost the knack for working. And the way we distribute food, and it's really remarkable, and it is a system of remarkable breadth and depth. In Waverly, Tennessee, if you want to eat Alaskan salmon, you can take a short drive and you can buy probably fresh Alaskan salmon. You can buy grapes in January. I mean, it is remarkable how the food distribution system actually works, to the extent that we have taken it for granted. You know, we've taken this abundant life pretty much for granted. I'm going to just give you a little test. This morning when you took a shower, did you think about how much money am I spending for this warm water? Or did you think about how many gallons of warm water have I actually used in this shower? Don't even think about it. If the air in your house is not warm enough, you punch a little button and it becomes warm enough. Or if it's too hot, you punch another little button and it gets cooler. Our system has been remarkable in giving us this luxurious life because of that cheap grid electricity. We might be headed to a time where it is not available or it is too expensive for working folks to buy. So, that's the worst news I've got. Everything else I'm going to talk to you about is plumb full of hope. And it's plumb full of, yes, I can. I'm going to do this. We were, I got to talk to you about my machine over here. I'm going to just leave that. But I think I can talk loud enough. Can you hear me, cats? Yeah. 6 years ago, we were just absolutely enthralled by a Chinese rice thrashing machine. And so we bought a container load of it. Hey, they were just like you would expect. The quality of the welds were just garbage. Welding spatter all over it. The belt slipped. And we said, hey, we are going to get sued by 26 different people at the very same point in time. And so we took that rice thrasher and we gave it to a Tennessee guy who is a horse farmer. He's not an Amish guy, but he's not hooked up to the grid. He generates enough electricity to make this machine with a diesel generator. And he copied it and he made a wheat thrasher. This one weighs 100 pounds. The shaft about which the beater head spins is held in pillar block bearings. And you can pump this thing, feed wheat into it. It will thrash about 1.5 pounds of wheat per minute. All down through the hardware cloth into the oscillating and trembling pan. Pours out the chute on the side. It is on our website, backtotheland.com. And you can see some Mennonites in Idaho. Well, two of them, as a matter of fact. And you can actually see how the machine works and how it thrashes wheat. You can grow all the wheat that you and your family need on 1/2 of an acre. 17 to 20 bushels of wheat right here in Middle Tennessee is very obtainable, and thrashing it with that machine. So, that's kind of a story of hope there. We really believe that this is about an American thing here. The quality of the Asian machine is deplorable. The quality of this machine, the chain drive mechanism and all that, works wonderfully. I think that is number 256. We've got 254 out there in use right now. There's another 3, I think, in the warehouse. So the offering of the Back to the Land store came about from my involvement in horse-drawn stuff. I've continually tried to find the pieces and the parts for my little horse-drawn farming enterprise, and I ended up buying more stuff than I wanted. And so then it occurred to me, well, gee whiz, if I had to buy that wagon load of plows or plow parts, then let me sell the stuff that I don't need, and that'll help fund this little hobby of mine. And so that's the way we started in 1993. Then before you knew it, we had rolls of cotton plow lines, we had milk cows, we had milking equipment, and on you go. We actually sold 2 milk cows in the last several weeks, 2 Jersey milk cows, and a Jersey bull, as a matter of fact. We sell harnesses and all kinds of other horse-drawn stuff. Hey, probably 2% of the folks out there are going to work a garden with a horse or a mule, maybe 1/2 or 1%. We don't think that we're more pure than anybody because we got horses and mules. You probably will never work a garden with a mule, but nevertheless, your grandparents did. That is the DNA that's surging around in your bloodstream. And if you have to do that, you can do it. It will work now like it worked then. And you can take care of all the folks that you love in that very same way. The cheap grid power that we hook up to enables us to cook our food with the most modern, wonderful equipment. It scarcely heats the house up. Baked bread, turkeys, you name it. It's just instant heat. There might come a time when that is not available. We have about 6 brands of wood-burning cook stoves. They start at $1,690 and they go to about $6,500. A lot of it depends upon the size of the oven and the decoration. All of the stuff that we sell, and I can just say this about virtually everything, it's kind of expensive, it's kind of pricey, but the quality is there. If you were to buy a wood-burning cook stove from me, your children would finish wearing it out, or maybe your grandchildren. Some of them weigh 600 pounds, and the reason they cost so much is the components of them are so wonderful. And and again, let me just beat on the Chinese a little bit more. They are making a wood-burning cook stove, but if you crack an eye or if you crack the top of it, you simply can't find backup material for it. Some of them sell for just a few $100s, and I think some of them even have a sign on it, a disclaimer: "Don't build a fire in this stove." You know, something's not right. Yeah. We sell a lot of open pollinated seed. We've got 8 varieties of non-GMO heirloom field corn. It's just hard to find. Virtually all the farmers in this country are now planting a family of corn that will tolerate Roundup, a chemical that kills weeds. And the genetic makeup of this plant allows it to tolerate the poison, and it makes some of it very prolific. Some of those plantations are, what's the population on the average acre of corn plants? 30,000 plants an acre? With an open pollinated plant, you probably better stick to 12,000 to 15,000 plants. Got to plant them farther apart in the drill, and the rows have to be farther apart. But the GMO corn is being excluded from a lot of markets in the world, in Asia particularly, and in Europe. You can't sell our Roundup Ready corn products. And you just kind of know that something is not right with that. Everybody, sir?
That's what's happening to our bees. They're going to pollinate the corn, it's genetically made to kill bugs and repel bugs, and they're carrying it back to their hive and it's destroying the American bees.
Yeah.
That's why we have bees out. They don't say they don't know what it is, but that's what it is.
It appears to be intervening in cattle productivity. More and more people are having more and more difficulty in maintaining pregnancy levels, acceptable pregnancy levels in herds of cattle. We put a bull, a Jersey bull, on Craigslist, and the phone rang off the hook. A Holstein dairyman from Portland, Tennessee, paid for the bull with a charge card and made me promise that I wouldn't sell that bull to anybody else because they're having so much difficulty in maintaining pregnancy levels that are money-making. And almost surely, I don't have proof of this, but almost surely it is because the cows are eating GMO grain. And people far and wide are beginning to suspect that. Our open-pollinated seed, the animals don't have that problem if they eat grain from our plants. And the seed saver people over here, well, this is a great story, I think. I'm delighted to share it with you. Seed saver is in Decorah, Iowa. They were 1970s counterculture hippies that were fascinated by the plant world. They went up there and just got hard at work in creating banks of seed. And as time has gone along, there are 155 people who work on that farm now. It's 1,200 acres, and there are 800 volunteers. They have saved 16,000 vegetable and flower plants. I have some seed over there called Martina's Roma tomato. The Martino family sent these seed up there 10 years ago anyway, and said, is this a unique variety? Is Martina's Roma really a unique seed, a unique plant? Seed Savers people worked for 6 years in evaluating that set of seed and that set of plants, and by they determined from DNA analysis and all the rest of it that indeed is a unique variety. And we are selling those seeds there tonight for $2 a packet. When you pay $2 for 50 seed, you're paying a pretty good little bit of money for seed, but you're funding that 6 years of evaluation and research. So every time, hey, they quit smoking pot. Every time you buy, every time you buy that seed, you are doing something wonderful. Your Aunt Susie's Larkspur and all the rest of it, there are just extensive efforts underway to preserve this genetic material, completely on the other side of the fence from our good friends at Monsanto and Cargill and those. Yes, ma'am.
There's also a branch of the seed savers called Southern Seed Savers that have the seeds that are more adapted to this area.
Down here. Thank you, ma'am. Did y'all hear that? Southern Seed Savers.
That one, isn't it?
Sir?
I think I read about her in Tennessee. Farmer's Almanac is a lady there. That's what she's been doing. She's been saving heirloom seeds that have never been genetically altered.
Yeah.
She's got. They're expensive.
Yep.
She has saved the natural seed and stuff. Kind of like that lady over in India has done.
Well, it is, here I am selling stuff. And when I say it might be a little jaundice sounding to you, seed is becoming more difficult to get. If you look right in front of that pump right there, you'll see some reddish looking seed, kind of look like Spanish peanuts. Those are purple hull crowders. It is a pea variety that my family with 5 boys and a girl, we grew up eating lots of purple hull crowder peas. I ordered them in January, probably 5 years ago, something like that. And typically when we order stuff, we don't accept any back orders. If we order a bucket full of bolts and they can't send us a bucket full of bolts, we just zero that out and start again, find them somewhere else. I had the presence of mind not to cancel the order and say ugly things to the people that back order. And lo and behold, last January, a 50-pound bag of purple hull crowder peas came to my store, and so I just grabbed the phone and ordered some more. I said, no, doesn't work like that. You've been waiting 3 years to get those. And so, for whatever reason, the families of peas called cow peas, there are probably 20 varieties. Those seedsmen are in Texas. And the Lord hadn't allowed it to rain on those folks for several years, so the seedsmen there have been defeated. Genetic material, pure genetic material seed is quite valuable. And if you've got it in your possession, in your closet or wherever it is, be grateful for it and take care of it. If it's nice and dry, you can run it through the freezer and freeze all of the worms and all the critters that are bothering it. I planted very directly 20 wormy seed, pea seed. And Pam and I call it the lost variety. She and I have had it for all these years. And this particular little package kept staying in the seed box, and it wasn't planted in a timely fashion, got covered up by other things, finally found it, and all those little webs and all those little insects had kind of devoured that seed. We planted 20 of those wormy seeds, and we got 12 plants. As long as the embryo in that seed is still alive, and there's enough endosperm, enough energy to push that little shoot out of the surface of the soil to the sunlight, and that other little sprout goes down, you've got a plant, and you've got renewal. Hey, you could make a real good Sunday school class out of the sprout of those peas. And it just, as an aside, as we go about the business of operating our little garden, we see the Lord's hand on every turn. Before we leave the plant discussion, we got 150 kitchen garden varieties, a bunch of field corn, a bunch of wonderful watermelons. You remember when y'all were children, there's a big old watermelon that you had to have the biggest boy in the family told. It's called a Congo. Weighed 50 pounds. It was that long, dark green with light green stripes on it. And it was a good watermelon to plant because it took nothing. You had to be a big boy to steal it and pick it up and run with it. I've got some Congo seed. Jesse here is a college graduate in agriculture, was running a very sophisticated farm down there for the USDA. I'm just going to invite him to talk to you just briefly. I know you didn't come here to hear about soil pH and fertility and stuff. And I want Jesse to talk to you just for a few minutes about that and refresh your memory in case it becomes necessary for you to be a good gardener this year.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. My name is Jesse Bolden, and about 3.5 years ago, my wife and I started praying about, actually 3.5 years ago, my wife and I got saved. The Lord came in our lives, and a beautiful, miraculous thing that happened to us because we were on the verge of divorce and things. We began to pray about a different area than what we were in. The area we're in South Georgia is the deep, dark South. And it's a nasty area. The soil there is not very, it's not a good type of soil for always growing stuff. You have to add everything that you do to it, including your lime and fertilizer and everything else. And the way we farm down there is big tractors. There's no small farmers anymore. There's no such thing really. Even here in Tennessee, it's hardly. You see a couple of folks that have a mule and they may be, still skidding logs with it. They won't even think about a garden, the people that I've talked to. And what we enjoyed about this area, and the first time we came up, I had a friend of mine come up here looking for some parts on a mowing machine that Mr. Jim had, and had talked to Mr. Jim about the parts and said, hey, I got somebody that's looking for a job in an area like this anyway. And we came up here and visited with Mr. Jim, fell in love with the land first. Well, the first time I've taken some of this dirt here in this part of Tennessee is just awesome. I love it. I was going to school to be a soil scientist and just always fell in love with it. And it's just amazing walking down Mr. Jim's garden. And if you kick over a clod of dirt, the first thing you see is an earthworm. Earthworms are fried. In South Georgia, we don't have none no more. If you found them, it may be in a creek. And that's about it. So one of the things that I just completely loved about this area too is there's still some places that you don't see a semi truck pull up with articulating, 8-wheel tractor. I know there's probably some big boys in here, I don't know, they're still farming like that, but the Lord allowed us to get away from that. I'm very thankful for it. I graduated from Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College there in Tifton, Georgia with a 2-year degree, went to the University of Georgia, got a 4-year degree, and had a 3.98 grade average there. And continue to work with the United States Department of Agriculture Research Service and the National Peanut Research Lab in Dawson. Been there for 12 years. Worked with 4 different boss men because the government would hire somebody and kick somebody, hire somebody. It was all, you know how it is. And the Lord blessed me with being able to get a student career employment opportunity program. It was awesome. The reason why I say that was I was 17 years old and was able to be on my own Blue Cross Blue Shield. My folks didn't have to pay for insurance. None of that stuff. The Lord was just really good at building up relationships. I was able to work with Mennonites there, farmers, work with people in the area and the county and everything like that. And literally, I went to school on full-fledged scholarships with the Cotton Foundation and the Peanut Foundation. I made money going to college. It's funny, you don't hear a lot of people say that. I tell you, my first money I had when I was in college, I spent on was a Cub Farmall. Just didn't have the planters with it, but I got the cultivators, and I enjoyed doing my gardening and stuff. And the soil there in Tifton is kind of a loamy sand, real pretty dirt. Always smelled good to me when you start turning peanuts. Where I was from, red clay areas, everything's hard. I liked it, but it's still hard dirt. In working with soils, one of the main things that is key to any plant is having the right pH. It always has and always will be. If you have a 6.0 or better, you're doing extremely well in this part of the South. If you get up above Tennessee, above Kentucky and them areas, that's when the soils start going the other way on the map, and you have to start adding different things to bring the pH back down to a 7 instead of from here, we're trying to bring it up. So in a grid down situation or something happening, you're not able to get your lime. If you do have a fireplace and you're not burning, soft woods like pine and things, you've got hardwoods, that's what you need in your garden. That's a great lime. It's your potash. I mean, that's just the name of it, so of course that's what it is. It'll lime your soil incredibly well. It does a great job, and it's absolutely for the trees in your area, because you're going to cut down trees in that area, and it's going to stay in that area. So everything you do there is a good, complete sustainability approach to agriculture. Composting is one of the other things that I was going to talk to y'all about, and it's a really good way to help build your soil up. Mr. Jim's got, we've got 9 cows, we've got horses and mules, we've got chickens, we got some rabbits, we got some goats. We got all the things that we need like that. And all of that mixed into whatever you want to contain it. You can take a trash can like that and drill holes in the bottom of it and just start cramming leaves, manures, waters, your eggs, your coffee grinds, whatever you want to put in there, put in it. It's going to compost it. It's going to be between 130 and 150 degrees, unless it busts open, catch it on fire, and you don't want it too close to the hay barn. It would make everybody pretty mad at you. But it's a great way, and I was talking to some of the folks in here about some square foot gardens. If you just start simple, you don't have to get super big to start with. You go to Lowe's and buy you some landscape timbers and build you a small little garden. And buy some of these really nice seeds. That's what we're here for, sell seed, right? That sounds like I work for Monsanto, right? Well, some of the best things to do is, and the funnest things to me, Mr. Jim allowed us to build a 30-foot by 50-foot greenhouse this year. We got a big old fat Ashley stove in there. We went to the sawmill and bought all this hickory slab and cut it up, and we just stoked it full every night. When I get there the next morning, it's still 4 degrees. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's this good stuff. So we've got lettuce coming up right now. It's gorgeous. We got our tomatoes, and we do have some gourd coming up right now as well. But keeping it simple, even if you didn't have a greenhouse, you can go to a pawn shop somewhere, buy you some windows. Get you 5 windows, put 4 of them, and have one on top, and grow your stuff under the bottom. You take your egg carton, you put your dirt in there, you plant your seeds and stick it in the dash on your way to work, keep it watered, and the sunshine, bake it. Just think outside the box of how to make things like that happen. Or like I was talking to somebody just had their seed in the kitchen. Well, you know, just keep it where it's warm and nice, you know, or you don't have to buy some growing lights, but you just have some fluorescent bulbs, just as long as you keep the moisture there. And don't forget you can overwater, right, Mr. Dan? You can drown the plant quicker than you can dehydrate them. But that's kind of your major thing. If you try to continue to keep up with composting, keeping that soil pH just right, you'll be able to literally grow about anything you want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. In talking about gardening, and we're going to leave that subject now, it is very important that you don't hear us say that there's this gold standard where we've got an organic, compost-producing process and soil that's balanced and full of fertility and earthworms, because sometimes that turns folks off. Your garden spot might be hard and rocky. It might not have enough humus, not enough fertility, but you've got to start somewhere. And so the gold standard of garden is that perfect situation and perfect soil to which we are all trying to get. You have to start with that little place in the backyard and go from there. 5 years from now, your little place in the backyard will provide you with most of the food you eat. We've got 2 garden spots. One is 28 feet wide and 116 feet long. One is 60 feet wide and 125 feet long. If you do the arithmetic, that's 10,748 square feet. That is considerably less than 1/4 of an acre. Last year, we either canned, dehydrated, or froze 850 quarts of food from that little patch. We grew 500 pounds of Irish potatoes and sweet potatoes combined, and we grew fall greens, Florida broadleaf mustard, Georgia collards, American rutabagas, Siberian kale, and purple top turnips. We grew enough of those greens for 10 families. Everybody on Salmon Branch that wanted some salad came to our garden to get it. So, you know, when you've got to take care of yourself, because the store is not available, the first thing you're going to think about is the milk cow like your grandparents had. Milk cows can be the absolute central part of your food making program. You also must think about your water. Now, the last thing, I was the youngest of 6 children, 5 boys and a girl. When I was in the 3rd grade, my task became to draw water out of the well in our backyard and fill up a Maytag washer and 2 No. 3 tubs 3 times every Saturday. And it put a right good set of arms and shoulders on it. It served me well all of my life. Hey, that's pretty much drudgery. Toting water in a bucket is drudgery. We have got a line of American-made pumps. All the parts and the pieces are available. All of it works together. We've got all of it. And if you were in Timbuktu, I could get pieces and parts to support those pumps to you by next day air, if there were such service. That pump over there is a 50L. It will pump from 300 feet down. It has a hose bib on it, so you can put a garden hose on it. And if you didn't have water from your water system, wherever it is, and you could put 2 barrels of water in your attic somehow or other, cut the access to the well off, and plumb that water into your water system, your potties would flush. Hey, it's pretty important for potties to flush when things go down. You would start thinking about how many gallons of water you use in bathing. Probably one of the first things we do is quit bathing so much, like we did when we were youngsters. Nevertheless, we've got pumps that are siphon pumps that will pump from 27 feet down with a foot valve to these deep well force pumps that are really marvelous pieces of hardware. And as an aside, I have sold a number of well drillers the 50L pump. Jack Castleman is one of them, Danny Osment, a bunch of others. Once they use the 50L pump, they never use another pump. Never do they install anybody else's pump. We are air motor windmill dealers. Air Motor is a proud old American company that's actually been owned and by some folks in Buenos Aires and all that. That company is located in San Angelo, Texas. Have a 40,000 square foot machine shop, and they make absolutely marvelous machines. We just installed one at the artillery round manufacturing place in Milan, Tennessee. Army's got a place over where they make artillery bullets. They're 44,000 acres. A lot of that land is leased to cattlemen and to farmers. And in this case, the Jones brothers from Oklahoma had 240 cows on several thousand acres of land out there in a remote part of that place that is not served by electricity. We put a windmill, a 33-foot tower, an 8-foot fan, pumping 84 feet down, pumped 3,000 gallons the first day. Their wind's a little bit better than ours, but we are using a small bottom cylinder. Hold that cylinder up on the please. We're using a small bottom cylinder and an 1.25-inch drop pipe so that that 8-foot fan will start pumping water when the wind is blowing 5 miles an hour. By using the smaller equipment, the smaller drop pipe, and the smaller bottom cylinder, which gives the machine more leverage, we can pump water in lighter breezes. And in this part of Tennessee, we got lighter breezes most of the time. So we need to have hardware that's compatible with that. We are very pleased to be air motor dealers. We have got other things that are just not available out in the world. Many of you probably recollect a time when some woman in your background, grandmother, whomever, made sauerkraut in a glazed crock. And it was a 5-gallon, maybe even a 10-gallon crock. Hey, those crocks are really hard to find. I finally found some folks in Ohio making those crocks. And they told me very directly, well, Mr. Smith, you need to understand this, pal. The last thing we want is a new customer. We are operating 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And so we will commit to sell you 1 pallet of crops. And they figured out the sizes and so on. Is $965. Send us the $965, and then we will send you the crops when we get them ready. And 3 weeks later, the crop came in. So this old hardware that at one time was just out there. When you went to the hardware store, you had an opportunity to buy all that kind of stuff. Pressure cookers, all kind of canning gear. You really have to look hard to find it now. And I want to just say this, and this really is kind of out there. There's a lot of this hardware, cook stoves, for example, that folks are now accumulating, preparing for a time when the lights don't come on or when whatever happens. And these folks do not have the ability to make the hardware as fast as they need it. In August, the 50L pump, Heller Aller, was 154 behind when I ordered 3. And they actually came to me over a period of probably about 8 weeks. Right now, we have an Elmira cook stove sold to one of your neighbors, cash in advance, and I'm about to have to tell them in the morning that the stove did not ship last Friday, like we said it was, and it might not ship next Friday. It might be that this stove is actually going to arrive in their possession 3 weeks late. And that is simply what's happening. As more and more folks become more and more concerned about what those nice people in Washington are doing, a lot of this hardware, the demand for the hardware is growing. If you plan to have a well pump, a wood burning cook stove, or any of this kind of hardware, you would probably be served well to evaluate your choices and make your decision to act sooner rather than later. If my mother were here, she'd stomp my toe for saying such things as that. But I need to tell you, as one person to another, I believe what I just told you is a true statement. And certainly from the scheduling and so on that I'm dealing with, it is absolutely very true. Okay, folks, that we sell a lot of other things in the store. Do you have any questions? Is there something on your mind that you'd like to ask me about with respect to this hardware or some situation that you're dealing with?
Yeah, you got a website?
I do. Backtotheland.com. And the Thrasher is demonstrated when you click on Thrasher. It takes you to a place and you can watch the Thrasher actually thrashing wheat.
You guys still doing the courses?
We have, I'm glad you asked me that. We have really had a tough time with seminars. We have vigorously promoted them and have had classes that would assemble on paper in the form of 15 to 18 folks. And we prepared for 15 to 18 folks, and 3 folks came. And we said, well, we just got to make them pay the tuition up front. We did that, and it didn't work. We had a free gardening seminar that had 54 people in. And we had horses and mules and the whole thing. And that one worked wonderfully. It was a kind of a cool day in March when we did that. We just don't know what to do with that. When we do the canning seminar in March, the box of tomatoes costs $50. The box of beans costs $40. The people it takes to put the seminar on, clean up and all of that, we spend $600 on the seminar, and we have 4 or 5 people there who pay $15. And we've done that. I mean, it's our duty to give back. We've done that, but we got to do better. We've got to figure out what to do. My wife is one of the great bread makers in the world. She will take a grain mill like that one over there, grind wheat into flour, and make bread that some people say is the best bread they have ever eaten. Her seminar, she understands the chemistry, and she's a good teacher. That seminar, it seems to us, ought to just sell out. It ought to just be a wonderful seminar. We are doing something wrong, and we're working on trying to figure out how to fix it. But we want to do that. Anything else? Well, I surely appreciate y'all letting us go. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a resistant weed.
Yes. Thank you so much. Hey, we appreciate your music. Hey, this is a Frankenstein story. He looks a little bit like Frankenstein when you get right there. This is a Frankenstein story.
He's jealous because he can't grow hair on his face is what it is. He just got a mustache. I see there's another older fella with a good beard here too somewhere.
You know, God made some heads perfect, and others he did. The ones he made perfect, he didn't put no hair on.
Like that right there. 28 years old and bald as they come, buddy. You got all the hair in the world. It just don't make no sense. Talking about just any kind of resistant weed to chemicals, it's going to happen. Everybody's always known that it can. Anything gets resistant to something, including insects, weeds. It doesn't matter what type of pest it is, it's going to happen. In South Georgia there in Dooley County, huge in cotton, humongous. They have some beautiful black dirt over there. And as the label reads on Roundup, you've got 22 ounces or 16 ounces you can spray. Let me tell you something. If you got 3,000 acres, you're going to spray the 16 ounces instead of 22 every time. And you're going to wait until them weeds are about that tall instead of 2 inches like the label says, because it'll still kill it the first 5 years, man. It's smoking. You could put you some just Roundup in there because it already had all the carriers and everything in it, and it was smoking weeds. It ain't even 12 years later, there was a man named Stanley Culpepper. He preached to these folks all the time that if you don't stop, if you don't start using different kinds of chemicals, try to put the plow back in the ground instead of just trying to strip till it or instead of trying to no-till it, it's going to happen. And it did. Pigweed, Palmer amaranth, started growing up out the ground. I'm telling you, cattle, the weeds, they'll get that big around and you can't cut them down with a chainsaw. They'll be so incredibly tall, you can't even see the other end with a cotton picker. Even with GPS running, the GPS don't even know how to get around it because it's blocking the seed. It's unbelievable. But those seed on those heads can produce over 50 million seed per plant. 50 million. And if you think about that, that one plant spreads out all over the place. Bird comes in, he eats a few, he flies over to the next field. You don't plow it in so it stays on top of the dirt. South Georgia's got some great dirt. It stays hot all the time. You know, it's always red. It'll grow probably by the 1st of March to the end of December. Till the frost starts hitting, each time it'll absolutely grow. These plants have become immune to it because they've sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it. And when you spray something and there's one plant left, that plant breeds. You can see how the cycle goes. It's just a pyramid like everything else is. Same thing with any kind of insects and stuff. But the scary part is understanding the way that when you take something out of a plant, the Joel Salatin approach, if you think of it with soybeans, for example, when you take a gene out and you put a new gene in, what did that old gene do? You've got to do some genetic thinking on this because when you're missing things or other things are added to, it starts deteriorating, sometimes, like what we were talking about in cattle. It's not proven yet because they're not going to prove it because it would be cutting so deep into so many people's pockets. But you think about when you are disrupting and disturbing all these type of organisms in a plant that shouldn't be messed with. I understand that you take people in this county, for example, they've got 4 semi-trucks. They're able to come in with the big tractors. They got sprayer hound and the tanks. They can flat out do everything in one day and be done with 1,200 acres. I used to farm like that. And we just didn't have semi-truck because everybody had a minimum of a 40-acre field where I'm from. Everything around here is about a 10 to 20 acre, you know. But when you continue to farm in that system, just like with the honeybees, things get disrupted. Things will deteriorate, things will die, and they'll mess it up.
My understanding on the honeybees is Bayer is the big corporation involved in the damage being done. They genetically altered pieces of corn. I can't remember now exactly which one it was. They've added a set of genes from the tobacco plant. The plant actually manufactures nicotine, and nicotine is a killer on bees. It totally scatters their heads. They don't have a whole lot there anyway, they're a little bee. And they get lost, they get disoriented, and they start getting weak, and then the hives die, and that's where that's coming from.
But just like all the old timers know, if you're growing tobacco, you can worm you if you're using your horses with it. It's a great worming, because when the worms get high in the system, they get passed out.
Yeah, we used to
It's a great way.
And cayenne pepper, hot pepper, and just make a sauce out of it.
It'll
Just
work.
spray that on the fields, and that'll take care of it.
Sure enough. But thinking about that with the bees, I'm not sure. You've got Bayer, you got Dow AgroSciences, you got Syngenta, you got Monsanto. There's trillions of them. There's tons of money. Absolutely, that's all it is anyway. It's a big money-making venture. But when those type of things happen, this is the repercussions from it. This is what you have to start. If you could get other people to start thinking that way, which is almost impossible, because they own everything. Speaking like this right now probably get me in trouble, to be honest. It'll get you in trouble, you know. But that's just the way it is nowadays. When we plant our open pollinated seed corn, me and Mr. Jim, we're going to have to talk to our neighbors that's planting the corn. We're going to have to plant at least 2 weeks early and try to beat pollination. Going to occur 5 to 7 days after silk, and you're going to have to make sure all that's done before their corn is up. Their corn is pollinating and it's blowing around, or birds or bees or whatever's moving the pollen back and forth is going to get on there. All it takes is just one of them little genies to get on that silk. So it's a process that, you know, is continually going. We're just going to have to watch out. I think we're going to have to be real careful what we continue to do with plants. So.
You mentioned pH. Do you all have a pH meter that works and easy to use?
Not really. It's still the best thing is just take soil sample and send it to, you know, University of Tennessee.
That's always just.
That's a very wonderful question. I have personally been disappointed in those do-it-yourself meters that give you soil pH. And of course, it's a question of time. Right now, we're kind of close to the time to kick this whole thing off. And if you send soil samples out today to a laboratory that you have confidence in, it might be 3 weeks before you get the information back. Let me give you a rule of thumb that I think you can't go wrong with. Use a product called hydrated lime. It is much more soluble, much more directed toward going into the plant now, and put 5 pounds on 100 square feet. 5 pounds on 100 square feet is a good cheat sheet kind of thing to do. And if your soil is already balanced, you are not going to take your soil pH dramatically beyond 7. That scale, as you know, is from 0 to 14, and 7 is neutral. And we want 7. 7 is hard to get. Jesse just spoke about getting from 6, between 6 and 7. And that's still very good, 6 or 7. Plants that, being a string bean, that you're trying to grow in 4.5 soil pHs, regardless of how fertile the land is, regardless of how you manage the water and curtail the weeds, that plant is going to be asymmetrical and it's not going to bloom. You simply can't overcome a bad soil pH number. And so that's the reason that we urge particularly new gardeners or people who are going back to the garden for the first time in a generation, go ahead and cheat. Use the hydrated lime, use chemical fertilizer, understand what that label means about nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash, trace elements and all of that, and go ahead and get started. You know, we have access to really a very informed group of folks. Anybody that comes to the back of the land store has sort of selected himself. And we have determined through interview, just visiting with people, that 1/2 of all the new gardeners abandon the project. And the reason they abandon the project is because they don't get the appropriateness of scale figured out. If you're working somewhere, if you're an old worn out guy like me, you don't want a big garden. Since we got on Jess, our garden is 2.5 times bigger than it ever has been. So Jess told me, and I got him to sign it, he was as good as 4 men you can find anywhere. I'm gonna hold it good. You have to hold Jesse back, he's a worker. But nevertheless, if you don't have time and energy to do anything but grow 12 tomato plants and 6 pepper plants and 1 row of string beans, it's a wonderful start. And just because you've got a tiny little place there, don't be put down by that. Do that successfully, and that will give you more energy. That'll give you confidence. And it's a celebration of life. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you one more question. You mentioned using wood ashes in place of the lime. I wonder if it would be the same amount of 5 pounds of wood ashes. Would that be equivalent to 5 pounds of lime? 10 pounds, 20 pounds?
It's probably a factor of at least 4 to 1, I would say. Yeah, the ashes got lots of things in there. They're good for the soil, but they won't have the lime that a handful of hydrated will have. Yeah, good. Sir, are you a gardener? How many gardeners do we have here? There's a bunch of them.
Well, like watermelons, when you cantaloupe, you gotta put wood ashes on there. Your
Yeah.
cantaloupe, watermelons on the street, that's the reason not.
You gotta get 1 package of Sorrente. Sorrente is a French watermelon. That's the only thing about those folks that I like. Their cantaloupe is absolutely the most aromatic, the sweetest, the best cantaloupe in the history of the world. Grows about that big. Yes, ma'am.
Do you need to be as careful as selecting a seed on cover crop?
I think the question was, do you need to plant a cover crop in the fall?
No, as far as selecting your seed, if you're getting your seed
Selective on your seed that you need.
that for the cover crop that you're
you used buckwheat?
Not yet.
Buckwheat is wonderful. It makes a nice, soft tissue plant, and when you plow it down, it quits. I mean, you don't have, it rots in 2 weeks. It adds a lot of good stuff to the soil, and it's easy to kill. You know, that's the thing about wheat. It makes sometimes a vigorous, deep-rooted, husky plant, and you just have a hard time subduing it and making it quit when it's time for you to get to early garden with it.
But my question is, should you be as careful in finding the seed that you're planting for that cover crop?
Yes.
Turn under.
Yeah.
In other words, if you buy it from co-op, are you getting GMO or?
I don't want to get sued. You would be very wise, I think, to just go and initiate that conversation with Mr. Co-op folks. I want only heirloom seed. I'm going to save the seed from this. We have heirloom buckwheat, and it comes from Jackson, Georgia, and we'll be glad. And in leaving here, I know I'm about to run over, am I not? Let me say this. Jesse and I are in touch with this lovely lady up in Amherst, Massachusetts, who has spent 15 years in the Fertile Crescent, researching and acquiring biblical grain, which of course was open pollinated. All of the wheat that our ladies make into bread, yeast-raised bread or sourdough bread, is hard Western wheat. We have been told for generations now, you guys in Tennessee and Georgia cannot grow hard wheat. You can grow soft wheat so you can continue to make those biscuits that you're so fond of, but you cannot grow hard wheat. We have got a pound of wheat in our freezer, and we paid $165 for, from Miss Ellie Rigosa Coffee. And we are bound to grow that wheat for probably 2 or 3 seasons and accumulate the seed. And by and by, I'm going to give my wife a well bucket full of that seed, and that's going to make us some bread. And if we can make bread, yeast-raised bread, with our own indigenous wheat that we have grown successfully, then we'll roll it out and we'll sell it and promote it. But it is once again, it's kind of like the seed savers thing. It's a many-year enterprise to go from this little handful of seed to food for the table. Y'all have been very careful. Yes, ma'am.
In order to save seeds from your produce after it's matured, does it have to be organic seeds that you plant?
No, it does not.
Not the word organic, just a non-hybrid seed. Non-hybrid, no, that's what it is.
Open pollinated and heirloom are synonyms. Those phrases are synonyms. And you will find a lot of seedsmen that when you ask them, is it open pollinated or heirloom or hybrid, many of them can't really tell you the difference in all that. But it's nevertheless, it's very important. Y'all have been very kind to us. We appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you.
Well, very useful information. Very trying times we're in. I mean, that's the name of the game right now. We've been kicking around, or it's been discussed within this group, of maybe some interest in pulling off something in between these meetings, like on a Saturday or something, that deals with any of that kind of stuff. I'm running about 6 acres of produce myself. I used to cold frame 10,000 tomato plants. We can do this. So if there would be interest in cooking off a kettle of lard, I'll be doing that before long. Butchering hogs, processing deer from scratch. And I don't mean Mickey Mouse either, I mean nice, good looking stuff. You can't get it that good at the store. Make soap, we make our own soap. If there's enough interest in those kind of things, we'll can outside in an iron kettle with a fire. You know, we ain't gonna can on a gas stove or electric, we'll can her outside in an iron kettle. If there's enough interest on that kind of stuff, give me a show of hands if somebody might want to see some of that kind of stuff. next core meeting, we'll talk about maybe doing some of that in season. We're probably not gonna go shoot a deer in July just to work one up. But next fall, when it's time, we'll get together and we'll bring one down. We'll do the sausage, we'll do the burger, we'll make some bologna. We'll take it full cycle. We'll do the hide, we'll salt the hide because that's worth $5. So we'll do it all. And here in the near future, move towards summer, we can do canned. We can do an outside canning with some green beans or something in an iron kettle, just to show you that you don't need none of this, all that stuff to do it. And this fall when I'm butchering hogs, we can have a hog butcher. We'll show you how to cure meat. So we'll kick around getting some of this together and do some of it. And anytime anybody wants to drop by my place, you're welcome. And when it gets into next fall, if you want to know how to skin and flesh a good-looking coon, fit for the Canadian fur sales, I'll be more than glad to show you how to put up some fur. Yeah, and then we can actually take that coon full cycle too. We'll take him and we'll pressure him up and we'll do him on the grill. We'll barbecue him on the grill. Or if we decide to do a beaver that day, we'll do some beaver burger and everybody will have a beaver burger. And I'm here to tell you, if you ain't ate beaver burgers, you ain't lived. Anybody here ate a beaver burger? Raise your hand. I got them coming. I'm fixing these people up. I used to throw it over the bank, and now I got to lock it up. It's that way. But hey, check the stuff out. We appreciate you guys for coming, and we'll get with you on something we're going to get ready to do. We'll do some of this stuff. Hey, thanks a lot. Couldn't do it without you. It's all about you.